Alrighty, we are live, getting started. Wonderful. I'll give it a quick minute or two before we kick things off as people file in. But if you are looking for the Sierra Club Dirty Truth panel, you are in the right place. And if you are logging in from YouTube, but you are looking for closed captioning, it is available on our Facebook and LinkedIn streams. All right, giving it another minute here before we get started. But again, welcome to the Sierra Club's Dirty Truth panel. We're very excited to have a group of wonderful and very knowledgeable panelists today to talk about utilities and the clean energy transition. And we'll get started in a few seconds. Alrighty, we are approaching 12:02, so I will go ahead and kick off the panel. Welcome to the Sierra Club's Dirty Truth panel. For those of you learning about the Dirty Truth for the first time, it's an annual report that we put out, and you will have the next 40 minutes to learn a lot more about what the report covers, our findings this year, and hear from our authors as well as just other experts in the energy field. My name is Christine. I'll be facilitating today's panel, and I'm very excited to kick us off by introducing our moderator today. Congresswoman Kathy Castor is here with us to moderate this panel. Representative Kathy Castor represents Florida's Tampa Bay area in Congress. She began her career protecting Florida's wetlands, coastline, and endangered species. And as chair of the House Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, she led development of bold, equitable climate solutions that shaped the Inflation Reduction Act, the most ambitious U.S. climate law in history. Congresswoman Castor now serves as ranking member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee's Energy Subcommittee, and we are so lucky to have her here to moderate our panel today. I will pass it to you, Congresswoman Castor.
Well, thank you, Christine. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I think we all know that Americans across the country right now are grappling with high utility bills right now. Household electricity prices are up. This year, 1 in 3 households is cutting back on basic necessities like groceries to afford their energy bills. 3 in 4 Americans, according to recent polling, say that they are very concerned with their electric bills going up. And they should be. At least 102 gas and electric utilities have either raised or proposed higher rates that will go into effect next year. For example, in my home state of Florida Power and Light earlier this year is seeking a $10 billion rate hike across 43 counties. That's been described as the largest rate hike ever in history of the country. And what's happening in Washington, D.C.? Are Republicans or the Trump administration doing anything to help? No, they are adopting policies that make it worse. They are not helping. They are raising electricity prices through everything that's going on with the arbitrary tariffs, the impact of the big ugly bill, we know is going to raise electricity rates. They are killing jobs tied to energy projects. That's also increasing costs, and that they are forcing the least cost-effective plants to remain online beyond their useful life, and that means higher bills for all of our neighbors. So we need real solutions. That's why I'm proud to be leading the SEEK Institute. This is a group of Democrats in Congress that have launched the Thriving Economy Project this week to hammer out the solutions to lower electricity bills and tackle the affordability crisis. We're doing it from the ground up with input from Americans like you all across the country, so join us. But as utility rates go up across America, we also unfortunately see that utilities are failing to make progress on their climate pledges, and that directly correlates to higher cost. Remember, when we talk about climate, we're not just talking about extreme costly weather events. We're talking about people's wallets. Americans deserve better. So we're all about accountability. So you're going to get the latest information on the lagging, dirty truth from America's electric utilities through what the Sierra Club report says today. So please join me in welcoming Noah Vanderbeck from Sierra Club, Emma Paps from Sierra Club, Sashu Constantine from Vote Solar, and Didi Belmares from Public Citizen. We're going to kick off first with Noah and Emma. Let's turn to you first. What is the dirty truth? What are some of the unique findings in this year's report? What's different from previous years?
Awesome. Thanks for that great introduction, Congresswoman Castor. Hey, everyone. My name is Noah Verbeek. I'm the Senior Energy Campaigns Analyst at the Sierra Club, and I focus on clean energy and coal. And I'm one of the co-authors on the Dirty Truth Report. And the Dirty Truth is our annual report that looks at how utilities are planning for the future. We first launched this report back in 2021, and we were seeing a lot of utilities that were talking a big game about their climate plans and what they were planning to do and their pledges for emissions reductions and reaching net zero by 2050. But we often weren't seeing that with the actual planning to back up those goals. And so we launched this report in 2021, evaluating 75 utilities that were owned by 50 parent companies that are most invested in coal and gas. And we score each of those utilities based on their plans to retire their coal generation, which is the dirtiest generation that we have on the grid and generation that we know we have to retire by 2030. And we score them on their plans to build out new clean energy and on their plans to not build new gas. And so we look at utilities, 75 utilities that cross the country, from Congresswoman Castor's constituents in Tampa Bay all the way up to customers in Washington and Oregon and kind of everywhere in between. And this year, utilities scored just a 15 out of 100, which even on our very generous grading criteria that we use for this report earns an F. That is 3 points lower than the score that we saw the first year and 7 points lower than our previous report last year. We've been doing this report for 5 years now. We do it every single year starting in 2021, and this is the lowest score that we've ever seen. We're seeing two main pieces that are driving this drop in score. The first is that a lot of utilities are forecasting really significant load growth. And we're seeing more load growth forecast by utilities than any previous year. And load growth is whatever energy that a utility has to serve for their customers. And a lot of that load growth is things that we want. It's electric vehicles, it's heat pumps, it's electrifying stoves and cooking appliances. A lot of it is also data center load and AI and these really big, large load customers that are requesting access to the grid, and utilities are trying to figure out how to serve these really significant increases in load growth. And a lot of times they're turning to a lot of gas and dying coal in order to feed that load growth. But we are also seeing this year, 65% of the utilities saw their clean energy scores increase. So we look at 3 different elements in each scoring criteria. We look at coal, gas, and clean as separate elements. And we did see 65% of the clean scores go up. Utilities are planning more clean energy, but they're not planning it at the pace that we really need to see in order to meet this demand and rise to the challenge of the day.
Great. Thanks, Noah. And I'll jump in here and thank you, Congresswoman Castor, for the introduction. My name is Emma Pabst. I'm a co-author of the Dirty Truth Report and a campaign manager for Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign, where I work to decarbonize the electric grid in the South. Like Noah mentioned, we're seeing a substantial increase in the amount of energy demand on the system, largely due to new data centers. And at that exact moment, utilities received the lowest score ever in this report, right? Instead of planning the bold clean energy commitments that we need to see, utilities are backpedaling into coal and gas. They're using load growth as an opportunity to do the wrong thing instead of meeting the moment with the immense potential of wind, solar, and battery storage. On top of that, increasingly this year, we know that Americans are feeling the economic crunch. We are all dealing with some very big bad bills of our own, and those are not bills in Congress. They are our monthly electric bills, and for some of us, they're upwards of $500 a month. For example, in your district, Congresswoman, Sierra Club analysis actually shows that Tampa customers have seen some of the highest rate increases in the state, 7.8% to be exact, since 2021. Earlier this year, we saw people come together around the price of eggs. Now we're coming together more around the price of electricity, which the data shows unequivocally is being driven up by outdated coal and expensive polluting gas. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. So, Sachu and Noah, here's the next question. We just watched the Trump administration and congressional Republicans pass the big ugly bill that took a wrecking ball to cleaner, cheaper energy investments across America. At a time when you've said we have incredible projections for load growth, is there still a path forward for utilities when it comes to cleaner, cheaper energy?
Thank you, Congresswoman Castor. Picking up on that question and your opening remarks and what Emma was just saying about affordability, one of the ideas in this edition of Dirty Truth that is really abundantly clear is that not only are the utilities making bad choices about continuing to invest in gas, even keeping coal plants alive, dirty fossil fuel assets across the board, they're also leaving these really extremely cost-effective, fast-to-market, clean energy resources like distributed solar and batteries, like energy efficiency, like demand response, all the electrical load that we're talking about in electrifying our homes and cars. This can all be beneficially used to bring costs down, bring reliability up, bring access to clean energy up, and really importantly to this affordability question, they are the lowest cost resources out there. So the utilities are leaving that all on the table. There are proceedings open to try to hold them accountable for that. And we know that those utilities are, in the short run, seeking to get more ROE and get profits from the rate base, investing in these fossil assets, even if they know they're going to be out of date soon because the other assets are cheaper and more economic and really more reliable in the end. But they really could be putting themselves at risk, both regulatory risk, environmental risk, economic risk. And that is a lever that we can use and work with utilities on. They may not be able to recover all of the investments if they are shown to be improper or imprudent investments. And that's one of the things that the Dirty Truth really exposes, that there are better choices for them. We can hold them accountable to that. They have to serve the population. Their mission, their duty to serve is to bring us the least cost, most reliable electricity that they can. We also now have laws in place that mean it has to be climate friendly. So, and I think, Congresswoman Castor, you mentioned this. When we talk about the affordability crisis, what we really need is to bring the cost of delivering that electricity down, or at least stop these increases from happening so steeply. So alignment of these grid choices, of the climate and economic choices, and the affordability choices really means the utilities could be investing a lot more right now in distributed resources like rooftop solar on our schools, on our churches, on our public buildings. That would be something utilities could absolutely do right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of I'll jump off of that too, which is I think Sach said it really eloquently that clean is still the best resource that we have. If it's wind and solar and also all of these distributed resources, energy efficiency, rooftop solar, demand response, all of these many options that are available for utilities that are far and away the best option and the option that people want. So I definitely still think there is a path forward for renewables. That path has definitely gotten harder in the last few months. The current administration is taking a lot of steps to make it harder for clean energy to come online. Even projects like the Revolution Wind project that just yesterday, 2 days ago, was able to restart construction after being stalled for about a month, even though it's more than 80% complete. And they're also taking steps to keep really dirty, polluting, expensive plants like the J.H. Campbell coal plant in Michigan, keep them online. And that's really, that's driving up prices. That's exposing all of us to more price volatility. When we are exposed to the market, exposed to the fuel prices, that's a lot of risk that utilities are exposing everyone to when those fuel prices change. But clean energy is still the best option. There are 2 terawatts of projects waiting for permissions to connect to the grid. For those of you who aren't as deep into energy world, I'll just say that is an absolutely massive amount of energy that is just waiting for permission to connect to the grid. And 6 out of every 7 of those projects is wind, solar, or storage. Those are projects that bring good paying, clean union jobs, billions of dollars in investments to our communities. And they're just waiting for the modeling and the permissions to actually come online and get interconnected and start bringing clean electrons onto the grid. And there is still an on-ramp. We have utilities and developers have until 2027 to start building out as much as they can while they still have the opportunity to qualify for the IRA credits. But even after the IRA credits are removed, wind and solar should still be the default. Wind, solar, and all these distributed resources should be the default option for cheap, clean, and reliable power. And there's still a path for utilities to invest in the resources that we know people want, for utility commissions to pressure utilities to do this, and for states to make this path smoother and faster to get all of those resources that are ready and waiting to come online as soon as we can.
Yeah, you're right, Noah. You know, America is the land of opportunity and innovation, and we need to break down a lot of these barriers to bringing the cleaner, cheaper resources onto the grid. And it's unfortunate federal policy right now is making that more difficult, but there is so much that can be done at the state level, and public servants need to push the utilities to do better and help people save on their electric bills. I am incredibly excited about the virtual and distributed power plants. These are tools where you can aggregate buildings and smart systems to reduce energy during peak demand. And with the right incentives, they can be deployed quickly. If you're trying to build a gas plant, that you're talking about years and years away. So grid enhancing technologies are also another great example of the low-hanging fruit that is available right now. And we've got to improve our transmission infrastructure. It was very detrimental to everyone across the country that the Trump administration took a hatchet to our investments in a more resilient grid right now. So Dee Dee and Emma, I want to bring you in here. Customers in Florida, but not just Florida, they're just seeing these electric bills go up, up, and up. And how is this connected to utilities slow walking the clean energy transition? What can customers do about it?
Thank you, Congressman Dee Dee Belmontes in San Antonio. Just to give everybody some context, we are served by CPS Energy in this region, which is CPS Energy is the nation's largest gas and electric utility and municipal utility in the nation. So CPS Energy customers have been seeing higher bills for several years already. The utility incurred close to $1 billion for fuel purchases during Winter Storm Uri in 2021. This is going to cost customers more on their bill for 25 years to recover those fuel costs from the storm. Between 2021 and 2022, bills were up 22% because of rising fuel costs. Those are gas costs. Our continued reliance on fossil fuels like gas puts vulnerable people at risk for higher bills because of the volatility of gas prices. San Antonio ranks the third poorest among the top 10 major cities. Our neighbors cannot afford to pay more. We went through a rate hike in 2022 and 2024, and another one is expected in 2026. So this compounds the bills of residents that is also being driven by gas. Right before this report was released, CPS Energy doubled down on gas. It purchased 4 gas plants in the Houston area and spent almost $1.4 billion. This was an expensive purchase that will fall squarely on ratepayers. Congresswoman, you mentioned in your earlier comments about public servants holding utilities accountable, and that is exactly what needs to happen with our utility that rated a C. They will be updating their generation plan this fall, which generation plan is like how the utility will power the city in a nutshell. So this is an opportunity for our public servants, for our city leaders, our city council, and customers to participate and call on the utility to do better than buy more gas plants and instead invest in clean energy and reliable energy for our bills, for our health, and for our planet. Thank you.
Right on. Thanks, Dee Dee. And I love that Dee Dee and I, the Texans, are the ones answering this question because I actually got my start in Texas and San Antonio working alongside her on this exact matter, shuttering their local coal plant and pushing for CPS Energy to transition to clean energy. So huge thank you to Dee Dee for her excellent advocacy in San Antonio. And I'll try to tackle this question from the statewide angle. We've seen time and time again that dirty, outdated coal costs more. The older these coal plants get, the more maintenance is required, the more customer costs go up. And gas is just the other side of the same dangerous coin. As a Texan, like Dee Dee mentioned, we know from the 2021 freeze, gas can be extremely volatile, spiking to record heights because of extreme weather. And because of that, we are going to be paying more for our electricity bills in Texas for the next 25 years. Finally, the data shows that clean energy is more economic than fossil fuels and is only getting more affordable by the day. So when we see utility companies like Florida Power and Light and Duke Energy scoring Fs in this year's report, we know that they are making the costly mistake of doubling down on fossil fuels, which customers like you and I ultimately pay for. As customers of those utilities, we need to push our utilities to do more on clean energy. And to make that happen, I encourage everybody watching today to do 2 things. First, stay engaged with your local utility and public interest organizations. Opportunities will arise, like the one Dee Dee mentioned, to submit comments or testify on utility plans, and people rarely show up to those meetings in person, so even one person speaking up there can make a huge difference. Secondarily, to help you do that, join Sierra Club's Mobile Action Alert Network by texting Sierra to 69866. We will help you prioritize the best moments to speak up to make the biggest impact, meaning that you can make a difference without tracking every utility proceeding yourself. Again, that's Sierra to 69866 so you can help take action and make the world a better place. Above all else, I think we need to remind regulators and utility companies that they work for the people, not the corporations lining their pockets. The rooms these decisions are made in are often full of fancy suits and overpriced watches. Creating change starts with people like you and I speaking up and claiming our seat at the table. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Christine, I'm going to throw it to you because I bet we have a lot of questions out there. So thanks to all the speakers for sharing the dirty truth today.
Great. And thank you again, Congresswoman, for moderating and being here. I will go ahead and get the Q&A started. And if you still have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, whether you are on Facebook or YouTube. All right, first question here. We are hearing all about more and more demand coming from data centers and load growth, which I believe Noah touched on earlier. Is it really necessary for these utilities to add so much gas to meet the growing demand? And since Noah, you spoke about it earlier, I will throw it to you first.
Great. Yeah. So just to start it off, I'll say no. It's not necessary. I think the first thing to note is a lot of this load growth. This load growth isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? I said it before, and I'll say it again. There is a lot of this load growth that we want to see. We want to see EVs, and we want to see heat pumps. We also want to see utilities planning for that load growth that's coming. And a lot of what the issues that we're seeing from utilities that are having a hard time moving fast enough to accommodate load is a lack of enough planning early enough to understand that these changes needed to happen and be prepared. But at the same time, we are seeing this new issue, which is really specific large data center load. And one of the issues that comes up with that is a lot of that load doesn't need to be served by gas. And in fact, it's increasingly difficult for it to be served by new gas. We're seeing really significant delays and price hikes in new gas projects coming online. So if you are a utility that's looking to contract new gas, odds are you're not going to be able to get that to come online until 2030 or later. But what can come online are the wind and solar projects that are able to come online on a faster timeline. Again, there are a lot of projects that are sitting in the interconnection queue just waiting to connect. And so we really want to see utilities doubling down on these resources that are clean. They're the resources that people want, the resources that are reliable in wind and solar and storage, and bring those online first and fast. And then at the same time, we want to see utilities be rigorous in their planning and understanding what is new load that is actually coming online, and what is a new projection that may or may not happen here, and instead of using those big load projections as an excuse to build out more fossil resources or keep their dirty coal plants online.
And Noah, I wonder if I could jump in and add to that a little bit. First of all, you're absolutely right. We don't need gas. Load growth can be a good thing if it's planned for properly, and so that planning piece is really important. Vote Solar, that's what we're doing out in the field, and reports like The Dirty Truth help us in those engagements, hold the utilities accountable. But there's another aspect of the clean renewable sector that can be deployed very quickly and at scale, and that's at the residential and commercial level. Not even those big projects that are sitting in the queue are being held back by, or not just the projects in those queues are being held back by utility resistance, but rooftop solar, batteries in your garage, the use of your car and demand response with your smart thermostat. These are actual resources that can be deployed. Congresswoman, you spoke about VPPs in your comments just now, this idea of a virtual power plant, coordinating all of these resources, which does take planning, Noah, as you said. Coordinating them can produce an enormous resource that is located close to load, that is deployed by everyone. We're all participant in that. So, Congresswoman, in your sector in Florida, right? Florida is one of the sunniest states in the country. It has the resource all across the state that can be contributing to this problem, to the load growth problem, to the affordability problem, front of the meter, behind the meter, and make all of this more manageable. So, and those assets can go up on the roof in a matter of days once we clear regulatory hurdles out of the way, once we clear permitting out of the way. The installation itself of these assets is very fast.
Wonderful. Thank you, Noah and Sach. And again, for folks who have other questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Congresswoman, while we have you here, I wanted to pass along this next question to you. Can you speak a little bit more about the role that the federal government plays in demanding more transparency from your utilities or asking for more clean energy or faster clean energy? And what sort of subsidies or policies can help or hurt this process of trying to decarbonize our grid?
Yeah, remember the cleaner, cheaper sources are available to come onto the grid right now. So the feds, we can encourage the transmission systems, the RTOs, the state utility commissions to all work together to help lower electric bills for hardworking people. The problem is that the oil and gas sector, they have enormous political power right now. I know we all remember very well before the election how they met with the president with the current president at Mar-a-Lago, and they said, "Here, we're going to contribute big money." He said, "If you contribute big money, I'll make sure I deliver for you." Well, he might be delivering for them, but he's not delivering for hardworking Americans. He's not focused on their bottom line. He's focused on the bottom line of these fossil fuel companies. That's the dirty truth. Meanwhile, people are really paying the price, and they feel betrayed. They really do. They thought that folks were going to look out for them and their pocketbooks, but instead, it's the shareholders, it's the oil and gas CEOs who are making out like bandits. So that's part of the dirty truth, and that's why this report is so important, because this is a way to hold folks accountable, to explain to people there are solutions out there to lower your electric bill by addressing the barriers of that interconnection queue to get the cleaner sources online, to use American innovation for these virtual power plants and grid enhancing technologies. We just have to have public servants who are standing up for people and know that Americans deserve better, and direct companies and utilities to make this happen.
Great. Not sure if anyone else wants to jump in, or I'm happy to move on. Great. Or did I hear an unclick? Cool. The beauty of webinars. All right. And this next question, I think, probably directed to our wonderful authors here, however, always open for folks to jump in. Are there any utilities that are leading the way, who are doing pretty good in terms of phasing out their coal, not adding a lot of gas, and instead investing in clean energy? And what lessons can be learned from these good examples of utilities that we want to look to?
Yeah. Fab, Noah, if that's good. I would jump in and say yes. I mean, there are certainly utilities that are doing better than others. I think it's important to consider that progress can always be made, right? Even the utilities that are getting A's in this report still have a long way to go in terms of actually achieving the clean energy transition. And I also want to acknowledge that in part, a lot of the progress that these utilities that are getting higher grades in the report are making is thanks to the work of advocates like Sierra Club, Public Citizen, Vote Solar, and other organizations pushing those utilities to do the right thing, which is what has driven up their scores over the years. But and you can see from the report methodology itself that these utilities that are scoring highly, they're scoring highly because they have committed to retire their coal plants by 2030, and they have already done that, or they have solid plans in place to do so. They are not committing to build new gas into 2035, and they are planning enough clean energy in order to meet current demand and demand growth. With solar energy, with wind energy, and with battery storage to smooth out that demand curve. So across the board, we've seen across the nation that when we set high goals on renewable energy, when we demand something that might seem impossible, we figure out pragmatically how to get there one step at a time. And the utilities that are scoring highly in this report have started to do that.
And I'll jump in to add too. I said at the top, one of the origins of this report was seeing a lot of utilities that were setting big climate goals for themselves. And really, we wanted to have a way of comparing those climate goals to what the utilities are doing in reality. And we haven't talked about that too much, but one of the things that we've noticed every year in the report is that overall, across all of the utilities, just the fact that a utility has some sort of climate goal doesn't actually do very much for their score. The utilities that have some sort of climate goal versus the few that don't, there's not a huge difference in scores. But what we do see is that the utilities that have really strong 80% by 2030, strong climate commitments with interim milestones and regular checks to say, are we meeting these targets, and they are serious about this goal applying to their utility, those are the utilities that are doing well. Those are the utilities that are earning higher scores and are phasing down their coal and are building more clean energy. Like Emma said, we still always want to see progress, and we want to see more happening. But having strong climate commitments with good interim targets, we do see associated with utilities performing better. And having no goal whatsoever, we do see the utilities that don't have any. I think there's about 7 utilities that don't have any goal whatsoever perform the worst out of any of the utilities.
Great, thank you. All right, sorry, looking through our questions here. All right, shifting gears a little bit to talk about reliability, since that kind of seems to be what a lot of the talking points from the fossil fuel industry, they like to say, well, what about reliability? What about reliability? So the question is, what about reliability? Where, if this current progress continues, if we continue to see these scores backslide and get lower and lower, and we're seeing more and more gas, what does that mean for reliability and costs in the next 5 to 10 years if we want to make that projection?
I would love to jump in on that question. Let's take Florida, for example, since we have the congresswoman here, right? Florida is currently generating over 70%, maybe 75% of its electricity from gas. There's some still coming from coal in the state, some nuclear as well. What that has done is that it's exposed customers to these massive price fluctuations. And we've already seen what pricing and weather conditions, as in the Texas freeze or the California heat wave, what those things can do to the supply and the cost of electricity to customers. So going down this path really puts not only the price of electricity into question, because it's going to fluctuate with world markets on fossil fuels, it's going to fluctuate with seasonal demands that are impossible to meet. It also is a reliability risk. It's a reliability risk that we've seen cost lives in Texas, that has the potential to cost lives in places suffering heat waves over summer, like Phoenix or California in general. And that's really an unacceptable risk. And the great thing about investments in renewables in particular, and walking down the path of climate readiness, is that they are no regrets choices. The assets that we put on the grid, combined with batteries, combined with demand response, and all of the distributed and transmission assets, this is a more robust grid. This is a more modern grid. This is a grid that can respond more flexibly to the kind of load and demand that we put on the system, to the weather and climate impacts on an aging grid. These are all investments sitting there waiting to be made by the utilities to the advantage of their customers, and the reliability that they would gain from it is also an advantage to the utility. They can't really do their job if they're having to shut down because of wildfires, or they're having to shut down because gas hubs can't pump enough gas, or they can't even get the gas turbines to begin with installed and running.
And another good example, I have to say, we're now at the 1-year anniversary of Hurricanes Helene and Milton in Florida, where a lot of people were without power for a week or 2 weeks. And a lot of the problem, yes, they were down power lines, but it was also because we haven't built a more resilient system and have larger, widespread solar power and distributed systems that can come back online quickly. In fact, there was the one community in Southwest Florida that's gotten a lot of attention that is kind of a distributed system, and they never lost power. And there's so much modern technology that the utilities are failing to deploy. The way that batteries have evolved now for large scale solar, and in other places wind and demand response and efficient systems, they're just not deploying these as they should. That can be a real cost saver, because that affects their bottom line. So that's one of the big barriers, is that they are about making money themselves for their shareholders, rather than making sure that that hardworking Americans, hardworking Floridians put money back into their pocket. That's why part of the accountability, yes, it's also the public servants that the governors that often call the shots when it comes to utility commissions.
Great. Thank you so much for your answers. I've got one final question here. I believe we've talked about costs a lot, but you can never talk about lowering costs too much, in my opinion. Congresswoman Castor, I'll start with you. On the campaign trail, as you mentioned, President Trump promised to cut energy prices from day one of his presidency. Where are we with that? How are we doing in terms of cutting energy prices, in terms of his policies, his executive orders, or things that he has brought up, even just in, he's at Climate Week too. How are we with lowering energy prices according to his agenda?
Yeah, I remember very well, and it resonated across the electorate when the president was campaigning and promised, I'm going to cut costs on day one. What's happened, in fact, is costs are way up. Inflation's way up. He took a hatchet to a lot of our cleaner, cheaper energy policies that are going to have a direct impact on the pocketbooks of my neighbors back home and people all across the country. He's betrayed us. They have broken their promises, and the GOP members in Congress have been part and parcel of that. So I'd say people, the proof is in the electric bill as people open them around their kitchen table and gasp and say, what the heck is going on here? I thought things were going to change. They feel betrayed. And that's why we're fighting to tell the dirty truth. And I'm grateful to the Sierra Club and all of you online who are shining a light on what is happening. It's not fair. It's not right. And we can do so much better.
Great. I see a lot of our panelists nodding vigorously. Do we have anything we want to add in terms of where energy prices are currently for our neighbors, ourselves, our families?
Well, speaking as Vote Solar out there, I could not agree more that the kitchen table economics of this, as much as the climate impacts. I mean, here with the dirty truth, we're talking about climate goals, and climate is an existential overarching threat. That is absolutely the case. But what we're talking about here, and what the Congresswoman is referring to, they are kitchen table economic issues. And that's where we need people to get involved, to see this kind of report and get involved. I already heard Emma and Didi talking about getting involved at your public commissions and in local political activities. People can make a difference. They can go out, they can get plug-in balcony solar, they can get rooftop solar for their homes, they can advocate for more community solar. That's going to also help the large-scale resources justify themselves and interconnect more flexibly. It's an ecosystem that is self-reinforcing, and people are at the heart of it. And I think that's just really important to remember. It sometimes feels hopeless when you have an administration like this, when you have the kind of powerlessness that we often feel in the face of utility investments. But solar and renewables and flexible load and electric vehicles and storage all are opportunities for people to take back power. So when you hear this kind of dirty truth, the response shouldn't be, oh, this is so terrible. It should be, this is terrible and let's do something about it, because there is something that people can do.
Great. I think that is a wonderful message to end on. And if you are watching this stream wondering what you can do, I'm here to offer a first step. As Emma has already mentioned, you can text Sierra to 69866. It's also there on the screen. This way we will be able to let you know what actions you can take, how to engage with your local utilities, how to show up for your community, for your family, for yourself, to fight back against these just really, really high energy bills, to push back against their practices, against their opaque practices that we are not privy to. There are things you can do. And you can start by texting that number, texting Sierra to 69866. If you have more questions about the dirty truth, you are always welcome to reach out to the Sierra Club. We've got a media email. And you can, of course, go to our website, sc.org/dirtytruth, to find out how your utility scored, maybe poke around your neighboring states, or to see which utilities scored the best, which ones scored the worst. And we've got all kinds of fun information on that page. Thank you all again to our panelists. Thank you, Noah, Emma, Sach, and Didi for speaking with us today. And we will close out. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.